Welcome back to Superhuman Customs, everybody. I'm Stephen Human, and today we are finishing out our set from my book, Paper Heroes. Now, there are 5 members of the main team, which are called the technicians in the book. We've already done Sentinel, we've done Airborne, we've done Tech, and now we have Panzer and Mammoth. Oops, his hand fell off. Ah! And we are going to use the same body, but we're going to be switching out the head. I have a dark side head, a dark side Batman head where he's in a cowl that we're going to use for one. It fits perfectly on here. And what we're going to do is we are just going to make these guys unique. We're going to be trimming off a lot of these little pieces. We're going to remove the capes. We're going to be painting them all black, adding all that stuff. But I've got an extras box, an extras drawer. All of you guys have extras drawers. I'm going to be pulling out all kinds of just little things to add to these guys to make it look like they have the exosuits that they have. We're actually going to be using some extra hands from a couple of 18-inch figures that I have, and we're going to give these guys the giant hands they have in the book because they have these mech suits and their hands go in these, and it's a whole part of the book. And so we're going to be doing all that. We're going to make these guys look really cool and unique so that they don't look the same. We don't want them looking the same. And it's going to be awesome. So let's go ahead and get started. Removing these capes is really easy on these guys. It's glued in the back and on the top, but if you just give it a little bit of elbow grease, you can rip it right off. Now, the next thing that I did is that I sanded down the hands so that when I put on the larger hands, they won't look too unnatural. I mean, obviously the hands are going to be giant, but I needed to cut these down so that it looks like the actual hands go inside of the big hands. I also ground down the ears on this first Batman. And as you can see, with the dark side version, with that Dark Father head, I added here with some clay a sort of neck brace, just so that, because there's a little bit of a gap between the head and the neck that looks weird, but with this neck brace, you can't really see it. It gets hidden. So, not that it necessarily has that in the book, but it works. Now I'm going to take some resin and I'm going to mix them together, and we are going to glue all of the stuff together. So we are going to glue the hands on. I've drilled a hole in these hands so that, particularly with these big Batman hands, the little nubs will fit in there, and as we resin them, they will stay permanently forever. They will not come out. I mean, this is some pretty tight stuff. I'm also going to add some, I found it was a Gypsy Danger sword, and I've cut it into pieces, and this is what's going to be the base of the feet to add some height. And then I'm going to take some clay and I'm going to thicken up the feet a little bit so that these guys are just thicker, so that they're taller and their feet are bigger, so that their feet more match their hands. And here's where we're at this point. They look very strange because of the fact that they've got these mismatched parts that have all been glued on. And this is going to be trimmed down a little bit, this thing on his, I wanted to have like something that was kind of like a hydraulic or something, but it really looks weird now. I'm going to trim some of that down. And so we're going to go out to the garage. We're going to spray paint these guys black. And then we'll come in here and we'll paint the heads, because the heads aren't going to get spray painted. But I think it's really going to look good. And we're also going to sand down these boots a little bit, the clay, so that it's a little bit more smooth. But you can see how they're looking a little bit disproportionate, which is exactly what we want. And I think they're going to look absolutely awesome. And the black spray paint I'm going to use is actual plastic spray paint. So hopefully we won't have any of the problems we've had with some of the other characters that we spray painted, where it doesn't quite set and it gets all over my fingers. So I actually invested in some good plastic spray paint. Let's do it. While the bodies are drying, as always, we're going to go through and paint the heads black. And this is a very simple thing. You know, you just want to watch when you get around the eyes. You just want to be careful. Same deal with the Dark Father. This one I'm going to have to use a smaller brush when I get around the eyes, because this one I am going to have to get right up to it. But the great thing is that this already has a little bit of black around the eyes, so I'm not going to have to get too close. So the chances of me screwing up the eyes are slim as long as I'm paying attention. The black is dry on this guy. I added a little bit of white to his eyes because his eyes were very thin. And now we are going to add a flesh tone, because obviously the character is not gray. He doesn't look like a zombie. He doesn't look like Darkseid. So I'm just using some craft paint because I actually don't have any Vallejo flesh tone paint. I thought I did, but I don't. So I'm gonna do a really nice thin layer of this craft paint, and it should turn out pretty good. And then I'll accent the mouth with a little bit of wash. So that's how this guy is going to turn out. They're looking pretty great, all in black, but we don't want them to be all in black because they have metal here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a light brush of this silver, and I'm gonna move it around almost like a wash, so it's gonna get in these cracks and crevices so that it just gives this a little bit more of a metal look. And I'll do it to both of them. And then I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna add some details, just like some scratches and things, like I usually do, because that's how I want them to look. All starting to look really nice with this metal texture. Now I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna hit some of these edges a little bit more, just nice and soft, but make it so that they're scraped so they stand out a little bit more. I think that will help out a lot because I don't want this guy to be monochromatic. You know, I want them to be black just like all the other characters, but you know, we'll do the yellow up in here like we did with the others. But I really want this metal to just feel like it's just that it's been painted. And I'm going through and adding just a few details with the silver just to make it so that things pop a little bit more. I'm gonna add some details in here now on the belt. I'm gonna make the inside of the belt yellow on both of these guys just to add some color. And then I'm gonna gold up the belt buckle. And then I think I'm gonna make these just straight silver. I'll play around with it just so that it's not so monochromatic. I think that the silver has turned out really nice. It makes it look metallic, which is what we want, but it needs that splash of color. And when we add the yellow, you know, up in here, that's obviously gonna do a lot to these guys. It has to all the other ones. I think we are ready for the final touch, which, as with all these Paper Hero characters, is the yellow lines going up the chest and down the arms. Now, if you'll remember from when we did tech, we found out that we were running out of the yellow fabric paint. So hopefully there is enough to do both of these characters. If there's not, then we're gonna have to buy some. But we're gonna move forward as if there is enough. So I'm just gonna go down and start on Mammoth right now. And then we'll move over to Panzer. And I'm just gonna do a first layer here on the front, just so that just in case we do run out, we're able to have enough to kind of at least have a first coat on both of these figures. But as always, this will require 2 coats in order to really, you know, pull off and make look awesome. All right, something really cool with Panzer here is that I decided to try and do like a brown wash because he's a little darker skin color. But because of the wrinkles on Darkseid's face, it ended up looking like 5 o'clock shadow, which is awesome. So I took a little bit more flesh tone and added it around the lips so that it actually looks like he's got 5 o'clock shadow. So that was a happy accident, but I'm really happy with that accident. His face looks much, much better with that stubble. Well, the team is finally complete. I'm really excited. When I started out on this journey doing Sentinel, I honestly wasn't sure how I was gonna make all these guys work. I didn't know which figures to use, and a lot of them just kind of, I would see a figure and be like, oh, well, cool, that'll work. So I'm really happy that I have this team. I'm gonna be taking these guys to all of my conventions so they can be around the Paper Heroes books, draw attention. So people come by, they can see what these guys look like, which to me is awesome. There's a 3D representation of something I've created, and I can show off to other people and get them excited about my books. So this has been a really great experience. You can see the entire team here. I am just so happy. This is great. And like I always say, you know, if you guys have come up with characters of your own, don't be afraid to make them into figures. Figure it out, because there's something so special about having a character that is solely yours, that you created when you were a kid or whatever, that now you have in 3-dimensional plastic. So go out and do it, customize some figures. I'm Stephen Human with Superhuman Creative, and if you guys want to check out Paper Heroes or any of my books, just go to stephenhuman.com. There's a link directly to Paper Heroes
in the description, so take a look, check it out. It's also on Amazon. I will see you guys next week.